Hi, welcome to Don's Manufactory. Today's the day. I have stuff I need to do, but one of the important things is I want to reset the neck so I can go to a standard bridge over here, make this thing more playable. And I've got some wood repairs to do here and over here on the where the controls are. Inside the cavity, Philip Jones. And when I did an internet search for that, there was a Philip Jones who was a luthier at the Gibson Custom Shop, long since retired. So he might have been the guy that fixed the neck. I don't know. I don't know anything. Prior to my friend Doug owning this guitar, I don't know anything about it. I'd like to research it and find out what the history is. So my task today is to get this neck off the body. And over here you can see my methodology. I've got a couple of foam factory hot wire cutters for cutting foam, and for a temperature control I just have a 12 volt 3 amp transformer that I can plug into my variac here, and then I can vary the amount of voltage and current going to the heaters. I'll be keeping track of the temperature via my thermal gun there. So I think maybe if I can get these regulated, I'll have to test it. I've got lots of wood scraps laying around here, so I'll test it to see how hot I can get it. 70 volts input to the transformer gave me 6 volts output to the heaters. And they got hot. Leastwise, it was smoking and you could feel the heat off them. Anyway, that is today's project. Disassemble the guitar and get the neck off. A lot of work. So starting up here is just using the old rag trick to get the knobs off. Getting the controls taken loose and oh gosh, yeah, desolder everything and try not to make a mess of it and save as much of the old parts as I can. There I was just showing the 1053 date, but yeah, whatever. I'll have to look at these pickups. The Lawler I figure will be in good shape, but the OEM one, I gotta really check the bobbin and whatnot, make sure. I don't know if I need to do a restoration on the pickup itself. I haven't looked at it. Okay, here I'm just laying out the pitch line and the sort of vector of the neck, so that when I put the guitar back together, I can put everything back where it belongs. Make sure that I get the neck back where it's supposed to be, and then of course get the bridge back where it belongs. It was about now that I discovered that the stop tailpiece, the studs weren't put in the proper place, and it actually sits off to the low side of the guitar, or the right from this perspective. So the strings actually had to come up and dogleg through the bridge and then go up the neck. Okay, here I'm just calculating. I'm trying to make sure that I've got everything in the right spot. Okay, now I start loosening the fingerboard along the body there, using those tools that I made and monitoring the temperature with the heat gun. And it actually popped loose fairly easily, and now I've taken the frets out and I'm marked where the side of the tenon was so that I could drill down through there for those temperature probes. I didn't have the camera running the whole time with this process. After I get the probes in there, I spent hours doing this. Okay, next up is just a piece of film I just happened to get. It's when the neck actually came loose. I just happened to turn the camera on at the right time. So not coming loose, I should say, traditionally. So here I've got the body clamped down and I'm using the clamps to apply pressure to the neck. As soon as I did that, bang, it just popped right off. The neck came out. It is a long tenon. The custom shop in that early guitar, very much the same. No ledge on the bottom. It's just a smooth fit. And you can see I just nailed it with the holes I drilled. So it worked okay. Now I got to start cleaning up. Get all this stuff out while the glue is still warm and gummy. And I can get it cleaned out. Anyway, it took... I put this little block under the heel so I could clamp down the body and let that put pressure on while I was heating, and I'd shoot a little water in and let the steam have at it. But all in all, it took, oh gosh, I'm going to say 2.5 hours of working this before it finally let loose. Yeah, if you don't count the fact that I worked on it for 6 hours the day before. Yeah, let's be honest here. I was even using my my hot air solder machine for doing ICs. I set it down to about 200 degrees so that while the probes were heating up towards the end, I could keep the back of the tenon warm so that the glue wouldn't reset and fight me. Anyway, really good news. Now I just got to reset the angle and clean everything up. I do have to re-glue the fretboard down to the tenon, and you can see there's a spot of binding that I have to glue back on. It just popped right off as soon as I started working it. This just makes me so happy that I got this apart. Woohoo! What I'm doing now is experimenting with different neck angles, and all I'm doing is putting shims under the tenon, clamping it, checking the angle, and then using bridges. See, here's an original lightning bolt, or lightning bar, however you want to call it. If I stick it along the neck here, see, it just hits the very top of the lightning bridge when it is all the way down against the body. And that's with a 50 thousandths shim. So then I went over and checked the neck angle. Let me show you how I did that. Okay, so first thing I have to do is check the angle on my table saw, which as you can see is 0, but just for grins of it, I'm going to 0 it, and I don't think it's going to change anything. It doesn't. Okay. So now with a 50 thousandth shim, the neck angle shows 3.2 degrees. Now it showed 2.2 without that 50 thousandth shim in the end of the tenon. So in order to get the height exactly right, it's got to be a little more than the 50 thousandths. Now, I guess what I should do is go get my Les Paul Custom, and I will put it up here and check the neck angle on that. Now, online it said something like, well, some guitars are at like 3.8 degrees, but other ones are 4.2. Okay, my Les Paul Custom. .1. So, right in the same ballpark as the Les Paul I'm working on. I think it has to do with how much arch there is in the body. This body is pretty flat. I haven't checked all the angles here. I could right now. It's 1 degree there, so that's the angle they chose, 1 degree. So in figuring out how I'm going to refit this neck, what I have to do is machine the tenon, do the heel right here so that it fits perfectly on the body. So my first order of business is to shave the tenon so that when I put it in there, it's at the correct angle that I've decided on. And then after that, I'll have to sand this surface right here to make it be the same angle as that the neck is going to be. So I have to change it from 2.2 to wherever I end up, 3.8 or whatever. And then the whole thing will glue up with the head being right at the right angle. It'll look factory perfect, as a matter of fact. And all the joints will be tight. At this point, I have an 80,000 shim under the tenon. And my neck angle is now 3.8. So at 3.8 degrees, which is what somebody said on the internet as the correct neck angle, if I put a straight edge across the fretboard with the bridge all the way down, there is only about 5 or 6 thousandths difference there. So it just clears the top of the bridge. So what that means is, after the guitar is all assembled, if I run the bridge all the way down, the strings will be on the fretboard. So for whatever action I want, which for me, that's about 70 thousandths, 80 thousandths. That means the bridge will be sitting up above the body by about 140 thousandths. This would be the OEM thing to do, would be to have this bridge on there. And you can see, oh yeah, it's just a hair lower by I could use a 50,000 shim if I was going to use this, but I'm going to go ahead and do 80 because I want to be able to use the badass bridge. And I can use this one if I want. It'll just be standing up off the body a little more than the badass will. I'm at it again, doing a little more fitting on the neck. The glue, when I got all the glue cleaned out of here and off the tenon over there, it fit kind of loose. So I ended up, I chucked it up in the cross vise there, and I milled off some of the wood on one side of the tenon, and then I just got through gluing a piece on there so I can then refit the neck and have it end up tight. Good morning. Back to the Les Paul this morning. So where I stopped, you'll notice there's an extra shim on the bottom. That's because after I machined the tenon, I realized that the neck is now deeper in the body, so it required just a little more angle in order to clear the bridge. I had put shims, machined the side of the tenon, and put a shim on it so that I actually needed to make the tenon about 10 thousandths bigger so that it would fit the body real nice, and it does. So what I'm going to do now, I don't know if you can see this or not, may not show it because it's a wide angle lens, but there's a dog leg right here. Part of it is the fact that the fingerboard is not all the way down. But there's a dog leg right about here, which is just typical, years and years and years later, having string pressure on there. The neck has bent right here across the heel. So what I'm going to do is loosen up the fingerboard up to about here so that I can do sandpaper drags to taper the tenon a little bit so that this back section of the fingerboard will drop down and it'll take that little dog leg out of it. And that will make the neck perfectly straight for playing, make the upper register play a lot better with lower action. So what I've been using to separate these joints, it's just I got a couple of these putty knives, rounded them off and tapered the ends, and then sanded all the burrs off it so it won't dig wood. So I have the wide one there. I have this narrow one that gets in there really good, and it's really flexible. And these are only about 25 thousandths thick. And then I have this wide one that I haven't really used that much. One more step to improve this neck profile before I glue the neck back to the body. Let's move on to time lapse. So you saw this tool before. This is a heater I actually bought especially for this job. I needed a way to get heat into the breadboard in order to get it to pop loose, and there weren't any methods that I had that I could use that would make some kind of sense, without damaging the binding and that kind of thing. I have got the fretboard separated up to here, so now I'm going to do sandpaper pulls. And basically all I'm doing is putting the sandpaper all the way up here, putting pressure on the fingerboard here, but it's actually the sandy side is on the tenon, and then I just pull it like that. And it sands more off of this end than this end. And I do that until I have tapered that tenon to get rid of the dog leg in the fretboard. And that's it in a nutshell. Welcome to Don's Manufactory. So today I've got my last repair to do. Last night I finished up on this one. I got these pieces clamped back in and glued up. And then I went over the upper cracks and worked super glue into there to smooth out the surface and to make sure that it's secure. And it is. It feels just perfect. So that is a repair I can keep, and it looks really good on the inside. I mean, as good as factory can look. So what I want to do is I'm cutting out the maple top down to the thickness that it was where the switch is mounted, and then I'll machine that flat, get it real as good as flat as I can. I've got my little Dremel tool that I'm using, and just a chisel and hammer, and I'll just work it until I get it smooth. So let's get at it. This took me quite a while to execute. Very painstakingly removing, shaving the wood with a chisel and trying to stay inside the lines. Done. I ended up making myself a tool here. Well, here I'm doing it. And it was just so that I could sand and shape, put the final polish on the machine part of the body there. You can see I used the pencil to darken it and then sand it down. It's just like doing body work on a car with a guide coat. So after I did the flat part, and then I cut a strip to allow me to do the vertical sides of it. The idea here is to have a very tight fitting plug. What I don't show that I'm doing is I cut a slug out of a hunk of maple, and I put it on the lathe, and I turned it to size, and I was slowly turning it smaller and smaller and coming back and trying to fit it to that plug until I made it absolutely, it was a perfect tight fit. I was trying to align the grain in the plug to the body, and I actually got quite a few of them to line up. So here I'm using a sanding drum on the die grinder just to rough it in, just trying to follow the body contours, and then the rest of it I did by hand with just sandpaper and a rubber hose. Doing this good of a sanding job was a mistake, which will become apparent later. Now I'm just using super glue to fill in around the seam there so that it's just ultra smooth. I edited out the hour of dry time between coats. At this point, got the plug in to repair the broken part there where the selector switch goes. Got that fixed up over there, so that's the last of the wood repairs, so time to glue the neck back in. Last night I got this repair done, and I had sanded the surface absolutely perfect so you couldn't feel the seam. But now this morning, up on the top here and over here, you can feel the seam again, which means of course it'll show up in the finish. So obviously the moisture from the glue caused things to swell up, and now things are shrinking. So I'm going to have to leave this for a few days before I do the final sanding of that spot there, so that this repair becomes transparent. Well, what I am doing here is my first attempt at hide glue. Following the instructions, it says to mix the crystals with water, 1 to 2 parts glue to water. So 50-50, a little more glue than water. That's about where we are now, and then let it sit. It says, in a clean glass jar with lid, glue can be thinned or thickened based on your needs. Mix thoroughly and let rest until all the water is absorbed. And that's kind of where we are. Just use one of these glue applicators. It's just kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a gel. So I don't know. It was all stirred up before, but now it's, well, I think I just have to wait. And I don't know, it says wait a couple of hours, but I did it last night before I went to bed, so we'll see. You know, if I screw it up, I'll just make another batch. Supposed to heat it up to about 160 degrees or so. This inductive hot plate, hot surface, you can adjust the temperature on it. It has a 140 setting, and then it's got a 195 setting. So I'm kind of thinking I'll just leave it at 140 and we'll see what happens. I can always raise it up a little bit. Yeah, it's only 80 degrees or so at this point, because I just turned it on. Anyway, today's goal is to get the Les Paul neck glued back on. And once that's clamped up, then I've got other things I can do. I have an acoustic guitar I have to fix. Now you can see the neck and body are glued up. A mistake I made is I should have side clamped the neck as well. Taking apart these tuners and lubricating them, they turn so hard. So I'm hoping I'll start on some of these really hard ones here. These are old school Grovers, probably from the 70s. Oh, boy, I can get this knob off. It doesn't even want to come off. Come on. Give it a wiggle here. Come on, you can do it. Sheesh. Okay. I'm going to stick the screwdriver between the washer and the spring washer here. There we go. And give it a little start. Okay. So there's a little friction stack here that you adjust by the screw for the knob. And it's a spring washer, then a washer, and a little nylon washer. And you tighten up that spring tension on the nylon washer, and that's what sets the tactile feel of the tuner. Okay, so Okay, this is what I expected. The grease inside here is just hard as a brick. This is exactly what I expected. Yeah. This is for you automotive guys, this is like the grease you'd find in your window tracks after 50 years. Which is just about how old these tuners are. Well, they're 40. I don't know, they are 50 years. Anyway, I'm going to wash this up. Get this grease, hard grease out of here. Have to use a little solvent and a wire brush on that. And let's just see if I spin this. I'm going to flip this over. Get the air hose here. See about blowing a little of that hard grease out of there. That's not too bad. Now let's get the hard grease on the inside. Well, let's not scratch up the tar there. We'll put a little shot of WD in there. Woo! There we go. And instantly the shaft starts to spin real easy. That's really good. Okay. Because there was all that dried grease was on the main shaft too. That's it. Okay, let me get this washed up. Be right back. Okay, I just shot it with a little solvent here, and now I'm just gonna clean it with a wire brush, get all that dried grease off of there. Okay, I think I'm going to use a little moly lube on it. We'll just see how that works out. It's not lithium grease, but it doesn't get hard as fast. I need to blow the excess WD out of that thing too. Okay. Okay, so now we'll put a little grease on this gear here. Get that all loaded up. So it's got a full load of grease. A little bit on the shaft. I think I'll take a screwdriver here, put a little dab of grease on the inside, just to sort of help it out. Okay, now just push it back together. Hey, it goes together a lot easier than it came apart with having slippery grease on it. Now for the washer stack, which is nylon, flat, and spring. That's the order. Then the knob. Wow, what is with this knob not wanting to go? Huh. This knob is really tight on there. I have to take a look in there and, well, it's got a flat side. I don't see why it would be. It just fits real snugly. Put the screw back in. So it's just like any other mechanical contrivance. You know, tolerances, lubrication, materials. Now it's got, oh, that's really got a nice feel to it. That's really nice compared to this one. Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these, and I'll be back. I have finished all of these. Got WD-40 all over everything now. But, they all feel just excellent now. So the whole point of this was to string this up. So the chore now is I need to place the bridge. Now I marked where the bridge was before and put a pitch line on there, but now that the neck has been off, everything remachined and back on, I don't know that the pitch line is in the same place. So I will have to check it. And I figure the best way to do that, I have left the old strings connected to the stop tail piece here. I can just, well, what I was going to do, let me screw these things in, put the posts in, close enough. So I just put the stop tail piece in, like so. Well, let's get them down. There we go, so it goes in good. Alrighty, so now I'll just go ahead and string it up, because the standard practice to keep the strings from hanging up in here and to have more tuning stability on the guitar is to allow the strings to slide easily through the nut, and you can do that by just taking a little pencil lead. Well, let's get a little more stuck out there. And the graphite lets the strings slide easily. Yes, it's graphite, it's not lead. Okay, let's more tangles here. Come on. So the deal now is I could use either one of these bridges. So let's check my calculations here. Now, my original calculations on this was that with this bridge on there, which is the one I was going to use, the strings with the bridge against the body, the strings would be just against the neck. And well, it's almost there. Well, they're not tight. Let me tighten up that E string and we'll see. Yeah, see? It's right against the neck. So that was my calculation for the neck angle. Basically, I was just putting a straight edge across here, and it was just touching the top of the saddle, so that for any action height I want at the 12th string, I have to have twice as much clearance off the body back here. So my standard, it's going to be 70 thousandths at the very most, probably 60 thousandths on the E string. That means 60 thousandths here and 120 here, but because it's already clearing the strings by 15 thousandths there, so it won't be 120 thousandths, it'll only be 100 thousandths or so. I have some 110 thousandths paint sticks right here. So, well, I got the strings too tight here. Let me loosen them up a bit so I can get my... There we go. Now what I want to do is just lift this up, slide this hunk of wood under there. So what I've kind of done here is I've mirrored the lightning bolt standard bridge with the setup here. I mean, it's not absolutely accurate, but I will line up the E right on that pitch line, and this E I will line up on that pitch line too. That's right where it is. And I'll center up the strings over the bridge. It's not quite wanting to stay there. Let's needs to be a little further over, right about there, so the strings are centered on the neck. Okay, so it's on the pitch line. So let's see if the intonation is correct. Let's see if I can clamp this over here or something where you guys can see. If I clamp this onto the bridge here, let's see if it works there, and then you guys can see the pitch. Oh yeah. Okay. So now I just fret the 12th here. Little sharp. Boy, that's pretty close. It's a little sharp. So I have to move this bridge back just a hair. Like so. Let's do that again. Okay, right on the money. Well, that pretty much verifies that the pitch line's right on. Close enough for the location of the bridge. Oh, just get in here, mark a little dot on the pitch line there, another little dot on the pitch line right there. Okay, and that, yeah, okay, so that's good enough. That's where it can go. Just like that. Now I have my body marked where I have to drill the holes for the ferrules. Alright, so what I'm doing here is setting up to drill the post holes for the posts. Gotta clamp it and then make sure I'm clamped square so the studs don't have any angle induced. If I let the body tilt one way or the other, then it'll tilt the dang post one way or the other. Okay, that doesn't... Okay, there it goes. So what I'm doing is getting this clamp... Ah! Come on. It's a little bit of a fumbly project here. Trying to get this stuff all squared away. So now what I do is I look between the back, between the body and the table, and make sure that the body isn't tilted one way or the other. A little tighter towards the rear, and we are set. Hopefully nothing has moved. Nope, it's right on the moolah. Okay, here it goes. Only a little nerve-wracking. Okay. And then, now for the final sizing. And that's it. All of this thinking and setup and everything, and then it all comes through in the end. So what I want to do is just stick that down in there, clamp that. Now it can't go anywhere. Okay. And now I can hang on to it. Come on, slide out. There it goes. Okay, so here we are. We are at the end of setup. I can take my setup lines off now. Okay, let's double check myself here. This was supposed to be the depth. Oh yeah, no problem. And it is longer than the thing, so we're good. So now, these just need to be driven in. Okay, I need to take it down further than that, so let's just put the stud in there. Why does that seem crooked? It shouldn't be. It should be completely parallel to the... Whoop, I want that down further. I want it to be under the surface of the wood. For one thing, I don't want finish to be a problem, and I want the bridge to be able to go all the way down flush to the body. I'll do that. Hit it with the other side here, Don. I'm supposed to be working this afternoon with my granddaughter on our Telecasters. So I'll be just about as done as I'm going to get on this guitar today. See, and then this just sits in like so. Ah. Okay. Just for starters, we'll put that 100,000ths in there. Just about like that. That should be about where it needs to be. And I'll just finger tight those. Maybe just a touch more than finger. I'm just gonna a little more than finger tight here. That actually looks pretty good. Okay, let's see if I can get these strings out of this stop tail piece and through that bridge. May not be able to because they have so much curl on them. I think I can get it wrapped. I just don't want to ruin a new set of strings. And I'm going to string it up and let this thing settle in for a while. Seems like everyone has their own way of stringing up a guitar. So as it turns out, I was using that string height or action gauge that I got from StewMac. I was using it wrong. Oh well. So when I said I had, like 50 thousandths, I was really at 70. So the trick there is the string is supposed to hide the line on the card. I'm absolutely amazed that these strings held up. I'd had them on and off of the guitar maybe a dozen times during this whole process, and they were still holding up and actually didn't sound that bad when I played them. Except for the little E, of course. The end of it broke off, so I didn't have much wrap, and I was having problems with it slipping. Well, action. We are 60 on the bass side and 50. Yep, 50 on the treble. Let's see how much hoop-de-doo we got in the... Well, not bad. It's got a little bit of relief there. Ooh. Oh, listen to that sustain. I don't think I put a pick in my pocket. Nope. Wow. Okay, it's a little on the sharp side. I kind of figured that. So let's flatten it just a bit on the bridge. That's pretty close too. Okay, we'll just leave it there for now. Wow. Let's move you guys in a little closer. Of course, my fingers are dirty. Out of tune already. Wow. Tune her up again. Well, not bad. Now, the whole guitar has to settle in a while. Let's see where we are here. Yeah, it's got a good 8 thousandths. I think I'm just going to play it a while and let everything settle in before I do any finish work. I still have to pull these and plug the holes, and of course I'll have to trim these screws off. But all in all, I think it sounds pretty good. I like these badass bridges. They have a musical sing to them. And when you don't have pickups in it and everything, that's when you really get to hear the tone of the wood, because that's all you have. And what kind of a sound is it will be at the core of whatever the pickups pick up. It just sings. Have to do a fret dress and polish, because anytime you have the neck off and back on, you're liable to end up with some little hoop-de-doos. So I have to check that. After playing it for 2 days, I decided that there were hoop-de-doos in the fretboard and it had not glued up properly. My fault. I glued up the fretboard or fingerboard with the fret still pulled. So there were 4 frets that were gone. And I used this sanding block, 12 radius sanding block is a clamping caul. But because the frets were out, there was no pressure on the fretboard right there, and it left a little hoop-de-doo, just slightly. It wasn't pressed into place as firmly as the spots that had frets that had the pressure on it. And so it had the hoop-de-doo and the hoop-de-doo, and then a little turn up at the end for the last 2 frets. So what I ended up doing was taking the fingerboard loose, cleaning it all out again, then doing a bunch of sandpaper pulls, and I ended up taking more off of the base side of the tenon because the neck had that dog leg, but it had more of a dog leg on the bass side than on the treble side. So I figured if I just tapered that side of the tenon down, it would make up for the dog leg over here and the neck would be straight. So I don't know if that's going to work. If it doesn't, then I'm stuck pulling the fingerboard off and machining the whole surface of the neck flat, which I don't want to do, or replacing the neck in its entirety. Either way, this is an experiment to see if it works, and then I'll string it back up and I'll play it for a while and figure out whether it's actually going to work or not. So that is the story. And I glued it. I was using this cold hide glue. Longer assembly time. So because for one thing, it is a reversible bond, which means I can take it apart again easily. We'll see what happens. Cut.